The snow had swallowed the road signs hours ago, and now the truck's tires struggled against a sheet of white that had no end. The radio cracked with static, then cleared just long enough to spit out a warning. Visibility near zero across Montvale Ridge. Non-essential travel is highly discouraged. Sergeant Eli Barrett muttered under his breath, gripping the wheel tighter. The town's only four-wheel drive patrol unit growled uphill toward an old ranger's cabin flagged by dispatch. Camera signal lost. Possibly just ice build-up on the line. But it was protocol, and something about the tone in dispatch's voice had made Eli raise an eyebrow. Beside him, in the passenger seat modified for K-9 operations, Rex had been still the entire ride. Unusually still. For a 12-year-old German shepherd nearing retirement, Rex still read the world like it owed him answers. Eyes amber bright, ears rotating like sonar dishes. That dog didn't miss a whisper in the wind. But just past the curve, where the woods thickened and the cabin's roof barely peeked through frost-bitten pine branches, Rex stood up. Eli felt the change before he heard the low, barely audible rumble from Rex's throat. Not a growl. Not yet. But the kind of warning Eli had learned never to ignore. "What is it, partner?" Eli slowed the truck to a crawl. Rex pressed his nose to the glass, nostrils flaring. Then, abruptly, he sat, ears stiff, tail frozen mid-air. And didn't move. Eli blinked. Rex never just stopped. Outside, the wind sliced sideways. The door creaked when Eli stepped out, his boots crunching hard snow. He rounded the front of the truck, eyes squinting towards the dilapidated structure. The porch sagged. No lights, a broken window near the side. Behind him, Rex leapt from the truck and landed silently, his breath puffing like smoke. He didn't bark, didn't rush forward. He just walked. Straight toward a pile of firewood stacked against the left side of the cabin. Eli followed slowly, one hand on his flashlight, the other near his sidearm. Not expecting trouble, but old habits died hard. Then Rex stopped again. Rigid. The wind howled between them. Nothing moved. And then, so soft Eli almost missed it, a voice. "Can I hug him?" Eli spun toward the sound. There, half buried behind the stack of wood, crouched a boy. No coat. Face flushed from cold, lips trembling, and eyes, green, huge, locked entirely on Rex. He couldn't have been more than 9, and he was shaking violently. Rex didn't flinch. He stepped forward, one paw, then the other. Slowly, lowering his body, not in threat, but in instinct. The boy reached out, hands red and raw. Rex leaned in. Hey, kid," Eli said, stepping carefully. "Don't move too fast, okay? He's trained, but—" "I know," the boy whispered. "He's not gonna hurt me." There was no fear in his voice, only certainty, as if the dog had been sent just for him. Rex pressed his head gently into the boy's chest, and the boy collapsed forward, arms thrown around the thick neck, sobbing without sound. Eli knelt beside them, his hand brushing snow from the boy's shoulder. "Hey, buddy, what's your name?" The boy didn't answer, just buried his face in Rex's fur. It took nearly 10 minutes to coax him into the truck. He wouldn't get in unless Rex was in first. Eli wrapped him in a thermal blanket from the back, offered water, radioed it in as a welfare rescue. Male child, approximately 8 to 9 years old, found alone at ranger cabin site, no ID, unresponsive to questions, no visible injuries, transporting now. Rex didn't sit in his usual spot. He curled beside the boy, who hadn't let go of his paw. Halfway down the road, the boy finally spoke. "My name's Noah." Eli glanced in the rearview mirror. "Noah. Got it. You know how you got there?" No reply. "You live nearby?" Still silence. But Rex shifted then, head lifting, ears twitching. He pressed closer to the boy. Eli didn't push further. They drove the rest of the way in near silence, save for the occasional sniffle from the back seat. At the Montvale Sheriff's Office, a small crew had stayed behind during the storm. Deputy Hallie met them at the door, her brows raised at the sight. "We picking up strays now?" She joked, trying to lighten the tension. "Found him behind the old ranger cabin," Eli said, voice clipped. "No coat, no shoes, no idea how he got there." Hallie knelt to Noah's level, but the boy wouldn't look at her, only at Rex. "He needs a medic," she said gently. "He needs that dog," Eli muttered. They gave him food, warm clothes, checked vitals. Nothing broken, no bruises, just cold, quiet, and missing. Rex paced the hallway when they tried to move Noah to a cot. He barked sharply when one nurse tried to take him away for vitals without Rex nearby. And when an officer tried to pat the boy on the back, Rex growled. A real one this time, deep and deliberate. Eli raised his hand. "Back off. He's telling us something." Later that night, Noah fell asleep in the cot with one hand resting on Rex's back. Eli sat nearby, boots off, staring at the boy, the dog, the mystery. He rubbed his eyes. "What the hell happened to you, kid?" Outside, snow piled higher. Wind screamed through the cracks in the windows. Inside, the boy slept. And Rex, never one to close both eyes at once, kept watch. Just before midnight, the power flickered. Lights went dark for 3 seconds. When they came back on, Rex was standing, and he was staring straight at the window. Eli turned, pulse rising, but there was no one there, at least not that he could see. The first rays of morning filtered through the frosted windows of the sheriff's office, casting a pale orange wash over the worn linoleum floor. The blizzard had slowed to a whisper, but its aftermath lay thick outside, 2 feet of powder covering Montvale like a white sheet drawn over something still breathing. Inside, the heat purred low. A pot of bad coffee sat untouched on the counter. In the corner of the station's small infirmary room, Noah was still curled up, one arm thrown across Rex's torso like it belonged there. Eli stood just outside the doorway, sipping from a chipped mug, eyes fixed on the pair. Something about it tugged in his chest, a weight he couldn't quite place. He'd seen Rex with injured soldiers in Afghanistan, even with kids in the aftermath of fentanyl house raids. But this was different. He didn't cry again. Hallie said softly behind him. Not even when the nurse said he might have had mild frostbite in his toes. He only asked if the dog could stay with him. "He's not just a dog," Eli muttered. "Not to that boy." Hallie crossed her arms. "Any luck getting info from him?" "Only his name. Noah. No last name, no town, no parents." Eli paused. But he knew Rex's name. Never asked, just said it like he'd known him all along. Hallie's eyes narrowed. "That's weird." "Yeah. And Rex?" Eli tilted his head. "He's locked in like I've never seen." Rex, now fully awake, shifted beneath Noah and looked toward Eli through the open door. There was alertness in those amber eyes. Not tension, something colder, watchful. "Think he's remembering something?" Hallie asked. Eli didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, because he wasn't sure what Rex was remembering, or if he was sensing something no one else could. Later that morning, a social worker from Ridge County drove in, Martin Greaves, clipboard in hand, voice soft, demeanor polished. He had a faint accent, maybe Minnesota, tall with tailored slacks and a scarf too clean for the weather. "Got the call from State. Said you found a minor, possibly abandoned. I've dealt with similar situations. Happy to take it from here." Eli frowned. "That fast?" Greaves smiled thinly. "We track missing juveniles aggressively in this state. I've already got a temporary placement lined up. Warm bed, meals, stability." Noah had been drawing something with a blunt crayon on a scrap notepad. When Greaves walked in, he froze. The crayon snapped in half between his fingers. Rex stood. Greaves took one step forward. Rex stepped between him and the boy. "Whoa." Greaves chuckled uneasily. "Hey there, buddy." Rex didn't growl, but his body turned hard as stone. Tail low, ears flat, head angled downward like a coiled spring. Eli held up a hand. "Maybe give them a minute." "Of course." Greaves moved toward the hallway, but even as he turned, his eyes swept the room, scanning like he was logging exits, cameras. When he was gone, Noah whispered, "I don't want to go with him." Eli knelt. "Why not?" Noah looked down. "His shoes don't match his voice." Eli blinked. "What?" "They're too clean, but his pants are muddy near the hem, and the dog doesn't like him." Eli exchanged a look with Rex, who was still staring at the door like it might attack. The radio on Eli's hip crackled. "Sarge, got a flag on the license plate of the visitor. Name's Martin Greaves, doesn't show up in the system. The car's registered to a holding company in Arizona." Eli stiffened. "Don't let him near the kid," he said into the radio, then looked back at Noah. "You trust Rex, right?" Noah nodded. "Then you trust me." That night, Eli dug deeper. The badge Greaves had flashed was real, state child welfare, but outdated by 3 years. The man himself? No official employment record, no state assignment to Montvale, just smoke. He pulled security footage. Nothing on the camera outside. But the one inside the back garage? Showed Greaves just 20 minutes before, checking the dog-run gates, quietly trying the lock on the evidence room door. Rex lay near the boy again, but his ears were up, turning like radar dishes. When Eli returned, Greaves was gone. So was Noah's backpack. Damn it! The following morning, the town sheriff called Eli into the office. They'd received a formal complaint. Greaves had filed it overnight, claiming obstruction of child protective services. "You need to play this by the book, Barrett," the sheriff warned. "We can't afford a lawsuit, especially with this media climate." Eli clenched his jaw. "He's not who he says he is." The sheriff sighed. "Prove it and I'll back you." Back at the station, Eli found Noah sitting beside Rex, still holding the stub of the broken crayon. But now he was drawing with purpose. Symbols, a triangle, a chain. The letters Cois 7 circled twice. Eli crouched down. "Noah, what is this?" The boy looked up, eyes suddenly more aware. "It's what they wore, on their shirts, like badges." Eli's heart kicked against his ribs. Rex got up then, paced to the hallway, nose in the air. Something was shifting. Something had already begun, and Rex, as always, had smelled it first. The lights buzzed low in the sheriff's office, casting a yellow haze across the cold tile. The heater coughed from the corner, but no one was paying attention to the temperature anymore. Noah sat at the small metal desk across from Eli, wrapped in 2 layers of donated flannel and gripping a styrofoam cup of cocoa like it was life support. Rex lay between them, front paws crossed, head high, not resting, not guarding, but listening. Waiting. Eli watched the boy sketch again. Same markings, the triangle, the linked chains, and the K7 symbol drawn over and over in a shaky but deliberate hand. "You ever seen that logo on paper before?" Eli asked gently, leaning closer. Noah shook his head. "Number only on shirts. They wore black jackets. Had dogs too, but not like him." He looked down at Rex, who pressed his chin briefly against the boy's shoe, then lifted it again, ears rotating. "Not like him how? They were mean. Their dogs didn't care. They hurt people when they were told." Rex made a soft sound then, not quite a growl, but low, like recognition whispered through his ribs. Eli's gut twisted. "Did they hurt you, Noah?" The boy didn't nod, but he didn't say no either. Instead, he opened the small front pocket of the backpack they'd recovered from Greaves's car that morning. Eli had nearly broken his jaw clenching when he found it, tossed in the trunk like trash. Inside the pocket was a single item, a laminated photo, edges curled, with two figures. A boy and a girl, standing on either side of a woman whose face had been violently scratched out with something sharp. "That's me," Noah whispered, pointing to the boy. "She said she was my mum, but they took her away." "They?" Eli asked. Noah looked up. "People like the man with the scarf." Eli swallowed hard. He stood, motioned to Hallie across the hall. "Run that symbol through any known gang, cult, militia database. K7, triangle, chain. Include trafficker marks and alternative symbols." Hallie nodded, her face shifting from casual concern to sharp professionalism in one blink. Back in his office, Eli opened an old folder, one he hadn't looked at in 2 years. Operation Furnace, a multi-agency sting near the southern border involving fentanyl smuggling and suspected child transport. One raid had gone wrong. 2 officers were killed. Rex had been there. One of the sites had been marked with the same triangle. At the time, it was dismissed as graffiti. Rex had found 2 kids in that raid. One didn't survive, and the other? Eli flipped through the reports. There, a name. Lucas, age 10. Transferred to protective custody. Vanished in the system 3 weeks later. Noah's eyes, his face. "Son of a..." Eli whispered. Back in the hallway, Rex stood up, pacing again. He moved with purpose now, not anxiety. His nose to the ground, tracking something the rest of them couldn't smell. He paused at the back door, stared at the keypad, and growled. Eli walked over. "What is it, boy?" Rex growled again, short and sharp, then snapped his head toward the hallway camera, positioned right above the exit. Eli followed his gaze. The camera's light was off. He yanked his radio. "Hallie, pull last 6 hours from hallway 3. Something's up with the back camera." 2 minutes later, she came down the hallway, her face pale. "Eli, you need to see this." The footage showed Greaves, or whatever his real name was, sneaking back into the station after dark. Through a service door. He didn't go toward Noah's room. He went to the evidence locker, and left with something under his coat. "What did we have in there from that cabin?" Eli barked. Hallie blinked. "Just the burnt camera, from the porch light. Looked water damaged." "Damn it, that was a trail cam." Eli slammed his hand on the desk. Rex barked. Once, sharp and deliberate. Noah peeked around the corner. "They use those to watch us." Eli turned slowly. "What do you mean?" "In the woods," Noah said. "The place they took us before. They had little boxes in the trees. Red lights." Eli met Rex's eyes. "Trail cams." Rex stood fully now, body tense, eyes locked with Eli's like he was waiting for the green light. Hallie spoke again. "Hey, something else just came through. I ran that K7 tag through the Border Task Force database." She held up her phone. "It's tied to a ghost transport group, blacklisted after a sting in Nuevo Leon, thought to be gone. But get this. The guy listed as a potential associate. Used to work child placement. Last known alias, Martin Greaves." Eli's mind raced. This wasn't just a trafficking group. This was personal. This was trained, embedded. And they were back. "Noah," he said, kneeling. "You remember where that place in the woods was? The one with the red light?" Noah hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Can you help us find it?" The boy looked down at Rex. Rex stared back, then stepped forward and gently bumped his head into Noah's hand. "Only if he comes," Noah whispered. Eli stood. "He's not going anywhere without you." In the garage, as snow began falling again, Eli packed supplies into the back of the SUV. Hallie loaded the GPS. Rex stood at the rear bumper, tail straight, eyes forward. This wasn't just another search. This was something else now. something buried. And finally, thanks to a boy no one wanted to listen to, it was coming to light. Eli stood at the edge of the station's garage, the cold morning wind needling through his jacket as he stared at the open road ahead. A storm system was moving back into Montvale by sundown, and visibility in the woods would drop fast. But that wasn't what gnawed at his gut. It was the paper in his hand. An official order, sealed, signed, and delivered that morning. Transfer of custody. Noah was to be placed under temporary care at a state-run group facility in Ridge Haven, effective immediately. Eli had argued. Hard. Cited the inconsistencies with Greaves, the stolen footage, the boy's behavior, the trail of red flags. But the system didn't run on gut feelings, or the instincts of a dog, especially not a dog who, on paper, was technically retired. Eli slammed the truck door harder than necessary and walked back inside. Noah was sitting on the floor of the main office, Rex curled beside him like a lion guarding a cub. The boy was tracing the chain symbol again with his finger on the tile. Not speaking, not asking questions, just waiting, like he knew what was coming. Eli crouched beside him. Noah. He hesitated. Someone from the state is coming to take you. Just for a few days. It's protocol. Noah didn't look up. You said I could trust you. Eli swallowed. You can. Then why are you giving me to them? Before Eli could answer, Rex rose to his feet. He moved in front of Noah, body tense, blocking the space between the boy and the door. A soft growl vibrated through the air, not aggression but protest. Eli stood slowly. Rex. The dog looked at him, and for a moment Eli saw judgment in those eyes. You know this is wrong. Deputy Halley entered the room just as a white government van pulled into the lot. They're here, she said, quiet. Noah stood now, but he didn't cry. He didn't plead. He simply walked over to Rex, knelt, and wrapped both arms around his thick neck. Rex didn't move. Eli reached for Noah's small bag, the one they'd packed with warm clothes and drawings. But when he lifted it, Rex barked sharply, twice. Eli froze. Noah looked at him, voice barely a breath. He knows something's wrong. A tall man in a navy jacket stepped through the front doors, clipboard in hand, smile too polished to be sincere. Officer Barrett? I'm here for the transfer. Paperwork's already signed. Eli's eyes narrowed. You're not the usual transport agent. Special assignment from state headquarters. They needed someone familiar with sensitive placements. Rex took one step forward. The man's smile twitched. Eli tilted his head. You got ID? Of course. The man pulled a laminated badge from his chest pocket, but it was too clean, too new. The lamination still had the faint curl of a home printer job. Eli didn't move, but Rex did. Without warning, the shepherd lunged, not to attack, but to block. He planted himself between the man and Noah, barking once, then growling, sharp and guttural. The man flinched. Hallie's hand moved toward her sidearm. Eli stepped closer to the badge, squinted. Where's your transport vehicle tag? The man blinked. Excuse me. All registered state transports carry an encrypted tag on the dash. I'll just run it real quick. The man turned too quickly towards the door. That won't be necessary. But it already was. Eli reached for his radio. Dispatch, run plate 60 Alpha. The man bolted. Eli was already chasing. Hallie took the back exit, but it was Rex who moved first. Like lightning, the old shepherd flew through the open door, paws slicing across ice and snow. His body was low, fast, silent. By the time Eli reached the parking lot, Rex had the man pinned, teeth bared, forelegs planted across the man's chest, holding without biting. The man didn't scream, just hissed through clenched teeth. You're gonna regret this. Eli knelt beside them, cuffing him. Not likely. Back inside, Hallie pulled the man's wallet. No agency ID, no placement records, just a burner phone and a business card tucked deep in his sock, emblazoned with a black triangle and the letters K7. Rex stood near the front door, tail stiff, nostrils flaring. Noah walked slowly to his side and looked up at Eli. "He didn't let them take me." Eli nodded. No, he didn't. That night, the station was quiet. The transfer was halted, the arrest recorded, and the higher-ups left with more questions than answers. But Eli didn't care about the red tape anymore. He walked into the holding room where Noah sat with Rex curled around him again. The boy was half asleep, fingers tangled in the dog's fur. Eli crouched down. "Hey, kid, I want you to know something." Noah blinked up at him. "I made a mistake today. I almost let someone take you who shouldn't have." The boy didn't say anything. But Rex? He knew. He always knows. Noah whispered. "That's why he stopped in the snow." "Back when we first met." Eli's throat tightened. "Yeah, he was stopping me too." From the hallway, Hallie watched them in silence, her hand resting on the doorframe. Outside, the snow had started again. But this time, it didn't feel like the storm was winning. The snow had started falling again, slow, silent flakes that clung to every branch like frost-bitten lace. Eli parked the SUV just outside the same cabin where they'd first found Noah. The board still sagged on the porch. The side window remained cracked. But something about it looked different now, like it had been watched. Noah sat in the back seat, bundled in 3 layers, his breath fogging the glass. Rex was already out, nose pressed low to the ground, tail straight, moving in a slow, deliberate circle. He didn't bark, didn't even whine, but he was hunting something old. "You sure you're okay with this?" Eli asked, glancing at the boy. Noah nodded. "I remember more when I'm here." Eli opened the door and helped him down. The snow came up to the boy's calves, but Rex moved to his side instantly, walking close enough that their shoulders brushed. Inside, the cabin was darker than Eli remembered. The wood stove was stone cold, but soot lined the edges. A rusted kettle sat on a bent rack above the ashes. Noah stood in the middle of the room and turned slowly. His eyes weren't afraid. They were alert, focused. "That corner," he said, pointing near the back wall. "There was a mattress there. It smelled like gasoline." Eli stepped forward, pulled back the rotted rug. Underneath was a trapdoor. Rex let out a low, vibrating sound that climbed into a soft whimper. His body pressed close to the floor, but his tail wasn't tucked. He was ready. Eli knelt and yanked the rusted ring. The hatch groaned open, revealing a tight crawl space below. He clicked on his flashlight. Wooden boards, trash, a few torn blankets, and something else. In the far corner of the crawl space, hidden beneath a pile of moldy newspapers, was a plastic container. Black, locked with a heavy clasp. Eli reached down and pulled it out. Inside, a camera. A small trail cam, water-damaged but intact. And beside it, a plastic bag filled with memory cards, each labeled with a red number. Rex moved closer, sniffed once, then twice, then growled, "What is it, buddy?" Eli whispered. He flipped through the cards. The first few were blank, static. But the fourth one, it buzzed on the handheld reader. The footage opened with forest static. Trees, then motion, children, led in a single file line through the trees, their faces blurred by night vision, but their silhouettes, small, thin, some stumbling. And then, a man, holding a flashlight. He turned briefly toward the camera, unaware. Eli paused the video. The man was Greaves. No scarf, just a black jacket with the K7 logo on his chest. Eli's pulse kicked. He turned to Noah. "You knew he was here?" Noah nodded, but softly added, "He didn't stay. He just brought us here." Eli stood. "Then where did they take you after?" The boy hesitated. "Down the hill, to a place with dogs, but not like Rex." Outside, Rex began circling again, this time around the side of the cabin. Eli followed, Noah at his heels. Near the tree line, buried in the snow, Rex stopped cold. He scratched once, then twice. Eli dropped to his knees and started digging with his hands. A handle. He scraped more. A steel door, built into the ground. With a keypad lock, now dead from exposure. Eli stared at it. This wasn't on any map. Noah moved closer. They made noise under there, like machines, like chains. The snow picked up, wind slicing sideways now. Eli radioed in the coordinates. "Hallie, we found something. Subsurface. Metal entry. Looks like a storage hatch." Her voice crackled back. "I'm on the way." They didn't go inside. Not yet. Not without backup. But Rex didn't leave the door. He sat, stone still, staring at it like he could hear breathing underneath. That night, back at the station, Eli reviewed more footage. One clip showed Greaves, again in the woods, leading not just children, but crates. Black, sealed, labeled MATERIALS. And behind him, in the shadow of the trees, another figure followed. Shorter, female. He paused the video. The woman wore a dark jacket. But her face, partially turned to the camera, froze Eli's breath. He knew her. Kayla Voss. Former federal field agent, intel specialist. Left the bureau under quiet circumstances 2 years ago. They'd worked together once. She was brilliant. Controlled. And then she disappeared from the system. Until now. Rex, lying near Eli's desk, lifted his head as if reading his thoughts. Eli rubbed his temples. "You remember her, don't you?" Rex let out one breath through his nose, then went still again. Eli reached for the secure line. "Get me DHS task force. This isn't just a trafficking ring. Someone buried this on purpose." As he hung up, Noah walked into the office, holding one of his drawings. He handed it to Eli. It was a picture of the steel hatch. But in the drawing, the hatch was open, and children were climbing out into sunlight. And next to them stood a German shepherd, tail high, mouth open in a silent bark, and eyes like fire. The snow had begun to melt, but in Montvale, that just meant the danger hid beneath the surface. Black ice, unstable ground, and silence that made your skin itch. Eli stood at the map table in the station's briefing room, marking a red circle around the steel hatch location. The Department of Homeland Security said they'd dispatch a team. Eventually. When weather allowed. When priorities cleared. Eli didn't have that kind of time. Neither did the kids still out there. Across the room, Rex paced in slow, methodical lines. He'd been edgy all morning. Every sound from the hallway turned his head. His tail never stopped moving, not wagging, but twitching in warning. Noah sat on the edge of a bench nearby, watching the dog like he was reading a second language only he understood. Eli tapped his knuckle against the table. "We go in ourselves." Deputy Hallie looked up. "You want to breach a sealed underground site without knowing what's inside, who's guarding it, or if it's even occupied?" "We don't go alone," Eli replied. There was a pause. Then Hallie asked, "You're thinking of Kayla, aren't you?" Eli nodded. "If anyone knows the layout of a covert site like this, it's her. I don't believe she turned. I think she disappeared for a reason." Hallie raised an eyebrow. "Last we checked, she was working counter-trafficking intel near Albuquerque. Went off-grid a year ago." "She doesn't go off-grid unless she wants to be found later." Later that night, in a small cafe outside Montvale, a woman in a weathered field jacket slid into the booth across from Eli. She looked leaner than he remembered, but her eyes, dark, alert, still missed nothing. "You found the hatch," Kayla said without preamble. Eli nodded. and Greaves, and the K7 insignia. I found it all. She sat back, arms folded. Then they'll know you saw it. You're in it now, Eli, you and that dog. Rex, lying beneath the booth, let out a low, deliberate growl. Kayla smiled faintly. Still sharp. I missed that sound. You were working this, weren't you? Eli asked. For months, until they burned my access. I've been following the financial trail, foster facility shell accounts, donations from overseas routed through cutouts. But I never got this close. How'd you find the boy? Eli told her everything. Noah. Rex's reaction. The trail cam. The steel door in the ground. When he finished, Kayla leaned forward. They move the kids in threes, always at night. The hatch you found, probably a holding point before transport. If it's still operational, it'll have 2 tunnel exits, one under the ridge, the other leads to an old mill site downriver. And if we breach it? Eli asked. They'll scatter like ants. But if you let Rex lead, he'll find the ones who don't want to run, because the ones still trapped won't have that option. Back at the station, just after 2 a.m., they suited up. Eli wore body armor under a parka. Kayla carried a suppressed sidearm and a digital signal scanner. Hallie remained at the station, running drone recon through a storm gap. Noah stayed behind, reluctantly, but only after Eli promised, Rex won't leave anyone behind. The SUV rumbled through the slush, headlights dimmed. As they neared the site, Rex shifted to a crouch, tail straight, ears up. He was ready. They approached the hatch slowly. Kayla swept it with a detector. No heat signatures topside, doesn't mean it's empty. Eli knelt at the lock mechanism. Power's still dead. We go manual. He popped the hinges, pried the door open. The scent hit them fast. Damp earth, mold, and something bitter. Chemical. Rex took the lead, slipping into the darkness like he'd done it 100 times. Eli followed, gun drawn, flashlight off. Kayla brought up the rear. The tunnel was narrow, carved into rock, lined with plastic sheeting that flapped in places. After 20 feet, they reached a junction. 3 doors, 2 sealed. 1 cracked open. Rex didn't hesitate. He went left. Inside was a small room. Cots, chains on the wall, a bucket in the corner. The stench was unbearable. But what hit Eli hardest wasn't the filth. It was the drawings, crayon sketches stuck to the walls. A sun, a dog, a hand. Kayla whispered, "They kept them here." Suddenly Rex froze. He turned toward the far end of the tunnel. A sound, muffled. Then again, a child's cough. Eli moved fast. Rex bolted ahead. They burst into another chamber, this one smaller. In the far corner, behind crates, 2 children sat huddled, no more than 6 years old. A boy and a girl. Pale, shivering. Rex didn't bark. He approached low, slow, and lay beside them. The girl reached out, fingers trembling, and clutched his ear. Eli holstered his weapon and knelt. "We've got you. You're safe." Kayla tapped her earpiece. "Hallie, we need medical. 2 minors, conscious, breathing, malnourished." Just as she spoke, a metal groan echoed behind them. Back in the main corridor, one of the sealed doors creaked open. Rex darted forward, positioning himself between the children and the noise. Eli raised his weapon. A figure stepped into the hallway. Not Greaves, a boy, maybe 15, dressed in black, collar marked with the K7 triangle. He raised his hands. I opened the door. "Who are you?" Eli demanded. "I was with them, but I'm not anymore." Rex stood frozen, eyes locked on the boy. "I helped the others run," the boy said. "They're in the mill. Please, I don't want to go back." Rex stepped forward, sniffed the air. Then, relaxed. It was the first time all night the tension lifted from his frame. Eli stared at the teen. "Then you're going to help us end this?" And for the first time, the boy nodded, not as someone escaping, but as someone ready to face what he'd once been part of. The boy's name was Tyler. 15 years old, born in Nebraska, vanished from the foster system at age 10. His name had been wiped from every state record. But there he was, in the flesh, standing barefoot in the cold underground hallway, eyes haunted and older than his age. "I'm not with them anymore," he said again, voice steady now, like he needed Eli and Kayla to believe it as much as he needed to say it out loud. "I want to help." Eli looked at Rex. The shepherd hadn't taken his eyes off Tyler. His ears were still forward, but he wasn't tense. He was reading the boy like a scent he couldn't quite name, but didn't fear. "Then start talking," Eli said. "How many are left? Who's in charge?" Tyler took a breath. "They don't use names, only numbers. But there's one. He runs transport. Calls himself 7. He used to come through every 2 weeks, until last week. Then everything went quiet. Said a breach had happened." Eli exchanged a look with Kayla. "That's when we found Noah." Tyler nodded. "They were supposed to pull everyone out, but something went wrong. 7 didn't show. The mill is the fallback point. It's not abandoned. It's where they wait before the next transfer." Kayla was already pulling a map from her pocket. "Coordinates?" Tyler pointed. "About 4 miles downriver, dirt road, hidden entrance on the west side. There's a water tower out back with a fake maintenance sign. That's the mark." Eli radioed Hallie with the intel, then turned to the children they had just rescued. The little girl was still clinging to Rex's side, her fingers buried deep in his fur. The boy beside her looked like he hadn't spoken in days. Rex hadn't moved. He stayed pressed against them, warm and still, an anchor in the storm. Eli squatted next to him. "You good with this, partner?" Rex flicked his ear in acknowledgement, then lifted his head as if to say, "I'm already ahead of you." By dawn, the team was moving again. DHS had finally greenlit an official response, but Eli knew better than to wait. With Kayla driving, Tyler gave directions from the back. Rex rode up front, eyes locked on the tree line outside the passenger window like he was cataloguing every branch. As they neared the mill, Rex stiffened. Eli followed his line of sight, 2 figures near the far fence, moving fast. One had a duffel bag slung across his shoulder. The other carried what looked like a clipboard. "They're prepping for movement," Eli said. "We have to go now." They ditched the SUV in a ravine, moved in on foot. Rex took point, leading them through the back trail, his body low, his movements silent. They reached the perimeter without being seen. Inside the mill, through a broken window, they could hear voices. "They're late again," one man grumbled. "They'll come. They always do." Then, another voice. Too familiar. Eli felt his jaw tighten. It was Greaves. He was alive. And he was here. Kayla placed a hand on Eli's arm. "You okay? I've been waiting for this." They made entry through a loading bay. Inside, the floor was littered with pallets and sealed boxes. No kids in sight, until Rex veered left, bolting through a half-open door that led down a stairwell. Eli chased after him. Tyler followed close. At the bottom was a long, concrete hallway. At the far end, a series of steel doors. Rex stopped at the third. He barked. Once, loud, commanding. Eli yanked the handle. Locked. Kayla arrived behind him, popped the door with a pry bar. Inside, 5 children sat on the floor. 2 boys, 3 girls. One immediately scrambled to Rex, arms around his neck. Rex didn't flinch. He leaned into her, nuzzling her forehead. Eli's voice cracked over the radio. "Hallie, we've got 5. Repeat, 5 miners located. Send medical support and backup now." Then came footsteps. Fast, heavy, Greaves. He stormed around the corner with a pistol drawn. His eyes locked with Eli's, and then flicked to Tyler. "You." Tyler stood tall, no longer the scared boy in the dark. Not anymore. Before Greaves could react, Rex lunged, not to kill, not to maul, but to disarm. The shepherd hit him mid-torso, knocking him back into the wall. The gun skittered across the floor. Kayla was on him in seconds, knee to his spine, cuffs clicking tight. Eli stood over him. "We gave you a chance to walk away. You picked the wrong path." Greaves spat. "You think this ends here? You think shutting down a hole in the ground means anything? You don't even know how deep this goes." Tyler stepped forward. "Then we start digging." Later, as ambulances loaded the kids into heated transport vans, Rex sat beside the last child, watching her step away from the darkness and into daylight. Hallie's voice came over the radio. "Feds are inbound. They're sending a full task force." Eli looked down at Rex. "You found them, old man. All of them." Rex didn't bark, didn't move. He just sat there, eyes on the horizon, like he wasn't done yet. Not until every kid was home. The air in Montvale had shifted. The storm clouds were gone, but the weight they left behind hadn't lifted. The mill was quiet now, fenced off, taped, tagged by federal agents. The media hadn't reached it yet, but they would. And when they did, the story would be about numbers, arrests, victims, charges. But to Eli, it would always be about one boy. Noah. Back at the station, he sat curled up on the floor next to Rex, drawing again. This time the lines were cleaner. He was sketching a room, like the one underground, but the walls were missing, and in their place were trees. A river. The sun. Rex lay beside him, eyes closed, breathing steady. But even in rest, he didn't fully relax. His ears twitched every time a door opened, every time a boot scraped tile. Still protecting. Always reading the room. Eli walked into the squad room, face drawn with exhaustion. Kayla stood by, the window, sipping burnt coffee, arms crossed. She nodded toward the office. "Director Monroe just called," she said quietly. "They want a debrief, full written report. DHS is considering pushing for national-level charges against the K7 network Eli sat." "Good. About damn time someone noticed." "They also want to know what you were doing breaching federal ground with a retired K9 and no clearance." Eli smirked. "Tell them I followed a scent." Kayla chuckled. "And they'll ask whose?" Eli's smile faded. "A kid's." They both went quiet. Then Hallie entered, her expression tight. "Got something." One of the local child services agents flagged a file during cross-checks. "Name's Luke Garner." Eli's eyes narrowed. "That sounds familiar. He processed Noah's original case," she said, "back when he was pulled from a private placement in Arizona 5 years ago." Kayla turned sharply. "Arizona?" "That's where K7 tested some of their first facilities. Off-grid desert bunkers." Hallie nodded. "Exactly. Garner's record was clean on paper, until today. He was the one who signed off on Greaves's placement ID 2 weeks ago." Eli stood. So Greaves was operating under a real clearance, one built from inside. Hallie's voice dropped. "Garner works 2 towns over, runs an outreach program for at-risk minors. And get this, he's coming here. Said he wants to personally apologize to Noah for what happened with the false transfer." Kayla muttered, "That's not outreach. That's tying up loose ends." Eli was already moving. "We keep him outside." 15 minutes later, a black sedan pulled up in front of the sheriff's office. Luke Garner stepped out. Grey suit, messenger bag, warm smile. Rex rose before Eli gave a word. He walked to the glass door, posture erect, shoulders locked, hackles barely visible, but present. Garner entered slowly, hands visible. "Sergeant Barrett, I just want to express—" Rex snarled. Not a bark, not a growl, a low, guttural sound of recognition, the kind that comes from memory, from trauma. Noah appeared behind Eli, peeking around the corner. Garner saw him, froze, and in that pause, Noah said just one word. Him. That's all it took. Eli stepped forward. Luke Garner, you're under arrest for conspiracy, identity fraud, obstruction of justice, and unlawful coordination with a blacklisted trafficking operation. Garner backed away. This is insane. I work with the state. Rex lunged forward, not to bite, but to block. He forced Garner against the wall and stood there, unmoving, breathing hot against the man's chest. You remember him now, don't you? Eli said. Garner's face was pale. That dog. He was there. At Furnace Ridge, he found your tunnel, the one you thought would never be traced. Kayla cuffed him. Guess he remembers things better than you do. As they led Garner out, reporters began to gather outside. Somehow, word had leaked. Flashbulbs popped, questions were shouted. Eli stood beside Noah, who was watching from the window. Are they going to ask me questions? Noah said quietly. They might. Noah looked down. Can I say no? Eli nodded. You can say whatever you need, or say nothing at all. Noah smiled faintly. I'll tell them about Rex. Eli ruffled his hair. That's a good place to start. Later that evening, after the noise died down and the cameras left, Eli found Rex lying on the office floor, eyes open, body finally still. Not in tension, but in peace. Noah was asleep on the cot beside him, one arm draped across the shepherd's chest. Kayla stepped into the room and watched the scene for a long moment. You know, she whispered. Some agents would give anything to retire like that. Warm room, soft blanket, a kid who trusts you without question. Eli looked at her. He earned it. Outside the wind stirred, cold but no longer biting. Inside the station was quiet, and for the first time in a long time, so was Rex. The courtroom in Ridge County wasn't grand. Pale wood, cracked leather chairs, a clock that ticked just a little too loud. But it was packed. State prosecutors, federal agents, reporters, and parents who had never given up. They all filled the benches, faces sharp with grief and hope. The K7 case had grown larger than anyone expected, spanning 5 states, dozens of children, and a trail of paperwork buried beneath years of bureaucratic neglect. Eli stood just outside the chamber, suit unbuttoned, tie crooked. He hated courtrooms, always had. But today wasn't about him. Noah sat beside him, legs swinging nervously, wearing a clean shirt 2 sizes too big. He clutched Rex's collar like a handle to steady his world. Rex stood at attention, not out of discipline, but from something deeper. He could feel the tension, the shift in the air. He wasn't guarding. He was witnessing. You don't have to go in, Eli said quietly. Noah shook his head. I want to see him. Inside, Luke Garner sat at the defense table, flanked by 2 attorneys who looked more like funeral directors. His face was blank, lips tight. He hadn't spoken since his arrest, hadn't offered a word of defense. But when Noah walked in, with Rex leading him through the gallery, Garner's shoulders dropped half an inch. Noah didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Rex turned toward the defense table, ears forward. He didn't growl, didn't bark. He simply stared. The room went still. The judge, a wiry man in his 60s, adjusted his glasses. Let the record reflect the presence of K9 Unit 721-Rex- retired, formerly of Special Recon, and companion to the witness, Noah Reeves. Whispers fluttered across the room. Some had heard the stories. Others were seeing the dog for the first time. Battle-scarred, weathered, alive. Eli leaned forward. That's right, let them see. Him. The prosecutor rose. Your Honor, We respectfully request the witness not be made to testify. The trauma is clear, and statements have already been submitted. The defense has not contested them." The judge nodded. "Understood. Let's proceed to the plea." Garner stood slowly. His lawyer whispered something, but he waved it off. "I'll take the deal," Garner said. The room rippled. Eli's jaw tightened. A plea. No trial, no testimony, no justice spoken out loud. But then Garner looked up, straight at Rex. His voice cracked. "I should have stopped when I saw that dog again. I knew it wasn't over." Rex didn't move. The judge accepted the plea. Sentencing would follow. Maximum under the statute. Outside, the snow had started to melt. Patches of wet gravel bled through the white. Eli walked with Noah and Rex down the courthouse steps, reporters at a distance, cameras lowered in reverence. Kayla waited near the SUV. "You hear what the director said?" she asked. "They're retiring Rex officially. Ceremony next week. Medal, press release, full honors." Eli looked at Rex. "He doesn't care about medals." Noah smiled. "He just cares about being with us." A siren wailed in the distance, but no one flinched. Later that evening, back at the station, Eli pulled the retirement file off the desk. Inside was a sleek plaque, polished metal tag, and an official certificate. "Rex, service complete." He set the items down. Across the room, Rex lay beside Noah on the rug, head resting on the boy's lap, tail thumping once. Hallie walked in, holding a box. "Got something from evidence. Trail cam footage from the hatch site. Recent clip they missed." Eli took it, loaded the video. It was grainy, but the voice was clear. A man standing in the tunnel, speaking into a radio. "7 is dead. The mill is compromised. Phase 2 moves to the northeast sector. Send handlers to the Detroit node. Activate the second wave." Eli froze. "Detroit?" Kayla whispered. Eli looked at Rex. The shepherd had already stood. Body tense, eyes locked on the screen. He was ready. Again. Not for retirement. For the next fight. The medal lay unopened in its velvet box, still resting on the table in Eli's modest kitchen. The small silver emblem with Rex's name engraved in clean serif font gleamed under the evening light. But Rex hadn't looked at it once. He was lying on the porch, front paws crossed, watching Noah chase wind-blown leaves across the yard. The boy had color in his face now. Laughter returned in bursts. The weight in his eyes hadn't vanished, but it had company now. Trust, stability. A quiet bond between child and dog that didn't need to be explained. The agency had offered Eli a position, head of a new child recovery task force. Better pay. DC housing. He hadn't answered yet, because every time he tried, Rex would glance his way. Not as a warning, just a reminder. They belonged where the work was real, and it wasn't over. Inside, Kayla sat at the table, scanning photos from the Detroit lead. The warehouse surveillance showed movement. Shipping containers, black vans, men with cold eyes and blank name tags. "Same patterns," she said quietly. "Same rotation, different city, different shadows." Eli nodded. "They're rebuilding." Rex stirred at the sound of his voice. Noah came running up the steps, a drawing flapping in his hand. "I made this!" He held it up. Crayon lines, messy but focused. It showed a German shepherd standing between two figures, a boy and a man. In the background, a dark tunnel. In the foreground, sun. Eli smiled. "That's us?" Noah nodded. "That's when he found me, when everything was bad, and then it got better." Rex moved beside the boy, brushed his nose gently into Noah's palm. "You ever think," Eli said, "how he knew?" Kayla answered for him. "Because he listens, even when we don't." Outside, a car pulled up the driveway. Hallie stepped out with a box of case files. "We've got a name," she said. "They call him the broker, runs ops from inside a shell non-profit, ties to Detroit, Philly, maybe even overseas. Eli looked at Rex. The dog was already standing. No hesitation. "I'll brief the team tonight," Eli said. "We move before they scatter." Noah looked between them. "Is he going with you?" Eli crouched down. "You okay if he does?" The boy was quiet for a long second. Then, "They need him more than I do now." Rex nuzzled Noah again, gently, then stepped toward Eli and sat. Ready. That night, as the SUV pulled away from the farmhouse, Noah watched from the porch, bundled in a hoodie that still hung off his shoulders. The porch light flickered once. Rex's silhouette sat straight in the backseat window, barely moving as the road bent and the trees closed in again. Eli kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting near Rex's shoulder. "You know this doesn't end," he said. Rex didn't blink. His body was calm, but there was fire in his stare, a quiet vow. Later, at the edge of the Detroit rail yard, Eli and Rex stood in the snow again, years and miles from where it all began. But the feeling was the same. Something was buried here, and Rex would find it. Because the truth doesn't stay hidden, not when a dog still remembers. Sometimes the ones who can't speak carry the loudest truths. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of a loyal companion, a moment of silent protection, or a truth revealed by instinct alone, share your story with us. Subscribe to the German Shepherd channel for more real-life-inspired stories of loyalty, courage, and the silent heroes who never ask for glory, only the chance to stand beside us. What's your story with a loyal pet?